All right, live from the inner sanctum of conservative thought, kicking off another brand new hour of the Steve Gruber Show, fighting for you from the foxhole of freedom. Remember, here's the warning, folks. This show could result in extended periods of American pride, optimism, and uncontrollable enthusiasm about the future of this country. Kicking off the live broadcast and Real America's Voice and MTN networks, reaching a growing global audience. I'm glad to have you here. Here are three big things you need to know this hour. Number one, there is one Supreme Court justice who continues to demonstrate that she doesn't care about the law, the Constitution, or upholding her oath of office. It's getting kind of embarrassing. Number two, President Trump has issued a temporary extension of the deadline to impose higher tariffs, but he also warned anyone who fails to make a deal will get severely punished. Brazil, however, didn't have to wait for that punishment. And number three, let's talk about the cover-up. Let's talk about the cover-up. But if I say that, you're likely to say, well, which one, Gruber? And I agree. There are so many. Jeffrey Epstein, because honestly, who really believes he committed suicide? His own brother calls that bunk. How about the cover-up of Joe Biden's obvious mental decline? Or the cover-up of the interference with the 2020 U.S. elections and the tens of thousands of fake driver's licenses the FBI found at O'Hare International Airport in Chicago? How about that? Yeah, all of those, and then, of course, the biggest one of all. It pulls in former President Barack Obama, former CIA Director John Brennan, former FBI Director James Comey, and the former Director of National Intelligence James Clapper. You see, we know now that all were deeply involved in the dissemination of the fairy tale paid for by Hillary Clinton and spun out of whole cloth by a discredited former spook, Christopher Steele. Well, a new report from the new CIA and its Director John Ratcliffe lay out the facts, and the fact is this. President Trump was targeted, framed, and undermined, all of which constitute a conspiracy to defraud the United States of America, all of which constitute a fraud to you, the American voter, to you, the American public. It's pretty clear now from a newly released CIA report from John Ratcliffe, the new director of the CIA, the former member of Congress, who's been elevated to this position, releasing a report. And he says, completely in contradiction of what John Brennan said in front of Congress as recently as 2023, that Brennan didn't want to stop this report from going out. He encouraged it. In fact, he encouraged it to the point that he kept at least 13 members of the CIA silenced. Russian investigators were silenced. People that worked at the CIA, this was their job, to study Russia. To study what Russia was doing with America, to see what the meddling was all about. It was their job to do these things. They were specifically kept out of the report. Why? Because this report, paid for by Hillary Clinton from Christopher Steele, the dossier, was designed to damage Donald Trump in the run-up to the election. And then after he had won, these four people got together. Barack Obama, James Comey, John Brennan, James Clapper, all got together to form a conspiracy, key word here, a conspiracy to bring down the duly elected president of the United States, to kneecap him, if you will. And boy, did they. It was in the news in the news and still is. Here we are, 2025, still in the news. Espionage, spying. They found collaborators at the FBI, the CIA, the Department of Justice. And then they found friends in the mainstream media who were more than happy to regurgitate these lies that have been manufactured and paid for by the Hillary Clinton campaign originally, and then perpetuated through the first term of Donald Trump. It's all on the table now. But the Bureau hid all of this. The FBI did. The dossier was garbage. They all knew it. But James Comey didn't care. The world's tallest Boy Scout didn't care. He wanted to impugn Donald Trump. They wanted to smear him, to handicap him politically, to destroy him if possible, which explains the FBI raid on Mar-a-Lago and everything else, by the way. It was all one big effort undertaken to destroy Donald Trump. That's what it was all about from the beginning. Comey was aided and abetted by John Brennan and James Clapper, a malignant force, if you will. A malignant force. They worked together to destroy the President of the United States, unelected officials, plotting to smear Trump any way they could. And when it was picked up by the media and regurgitated, you see, these 13 CIA members that were prevented from weighing in, the people that knew Russia and how it worked, they're prevented from weighing in because they said it's not true. This thing from Christopher Steele is garbage. It's not true. But the people at the top of the conspiracy didn't care. They covered it up. They did not care. I want you to hear from John Brennan. He's been out now trying to cover his tracks, saying, whoa, I don't know I don't know why they'd be looking at me. Because you did it. Because, Mr. Brennan, you did it. It's all clear now. You went out in 2023 and testified in front of Congress. You had no idea whether the Christopher Steele report had been included in that intelligence report. It was included in an intelligence report that was made public for that very reason, so that it would be made public. Here's Brennan yesterday. I want you to hear it. Listen.
So I don't know whether or not there's any, validity to it. If it was a referral, if there is an investigation, presumably if there is an investigation, that people will be questioned. I would be questioned about it. But again, I've had no contact from them. But again, I testified in front of many, many congressional committees in the House and the Senate over the years. And I continue to explain exactly what we did during this process, why we tried to make sure we stayed true to our intelligence responsibilities, and that we were not going to do anything at all to try to interfere in that election. And again, it was a challenging time, but also one, I think, that the people who actually worked this, both in terms of trying to collect intelligence prior to the election, and then the ones who put together the intelligence community assessment, they really, I think, showed the best of what the intelligence community and what CIA is made of. So again, I am clueless about what it is exactly that they may be investigating me for.
Yeah, I don't think he's clueless at all. I think he knows exactly what he's being investigated for, is John Brennan. So he goes out and finds out that he's in the crosshairs of a massive investigation into his web of lies. He reacts by lying and keeps peddling the completely discredited Russia election hoax. It's all he can cling to. Honestly, listen.
It's very surprising that, this is happening now. And I don't think there's any new evidence that's been uncovered at all. I have tried to answer every question I have been asked, whether it be by Senate or House members or John Durham or others, fully, because I want to make sure that people understand exactly what the Russians were doing to try to interfere in our very, very solemn domestic election system.
What were the Russians doing? I don't know. But nothing to the extent that he was alluding. It was all made up out of whole cloth. In fact, those CIA members that said don't include this said it would undermine the credibility of the entire paper. The entire intelligence report would be destroyed if you included this report. They included it anyway. That's one cover-up. I've got a lot more to rip the curtain back on going forward here on the Steve Gruber Show. Nice to see you this morning. All right, let me wrap out of the cover-up of the Russiagate fiasco, hoax. It was a manufactured political hit job is what it was. And John Brennan in particular pushed for the phony dossier to be included in the intelligence community assessment. That's the document that was released. And they said if we put it in there, and Obama knew this, and Comey knew this, and Clapper, and of course John Brennan knew if they put it in the intelligence community assessment, they would catalyze the false narrative against Trump. And even when they were done, they were able to find willing partners in the media. What do I mean by that? Well, John Brennan went to work for MSNBC, where he still works. James Clapper went to work for Chicken Noodle News. And so they're willing co-conspirators, if you will, in the news media. We're more than happy to go out with their bullhorns and their television cameras and broadcast it to the world. Russia, Russia, Russia. None of it was true. None of it. Donald Trump was proven right time and time again. Time and time again. Next cover-up. Joe Biden's condition as president. We all witnessed it. We all saw it. We all know he was losing it. I don't think he was wrapped tight when he got there. I think he was already in the throes of dementia and decline when he got to the presidency in January of 2021. The auto pen president. He didn't run anything. Except on occasion he'd run his mouth and his aides would recoil in fear. But really, he didn't run anything. So his doctor, Kevin O'Connor, is on Capitol Hill yesterday. Dr. O'Connor, we need to ask you some questions. I want to start with bite 12 here, Anthony, just a little bit out of sync. But here's how he answered every single question. First question, were you ever asked to lie about the condition or the health of the president? Here it is.
Dr. O'Connor, were you ever told to lie about the president's health?
On the advice of counsel, I must respectfully decline to answer based upon the physician-patient privilege and in reliance on my right under the Fifth Amendment of the Constitution. I am not a lawyer. I must follow my lawyer's advice in this matter.
Seems like a pretty simple question. Did you lie about the auto pen's health? Yes or no?
Yeah, there it is. Enough.
O'Connor, please.
Did you lie about the auto pen? Did you lie about the health of the president? Yeah, he did. Can't even answer a simple question. Were you ever asked to lie about the health of the president by anyone? Anyone. Friend, family, foe, friend, whatever. Nothing. So Kevin O'Connor pled the fifth over and over and over again. James Comer of Kentucky on the committee, pretty well unimpressed by all of that because he refused to answer any Biden health issue questions. He's the doctor. Democrats love the word unprecedented. This is unprecedented. Here's what James Comer had to say.
All right. Chairman, can you tell us what happened? I can tell you exactly what happened. Dr. O'Connor pleaded the Fifth Amendment, and I'm gonna read the first two questions that were asked. Were you ever told to lie about the president's health? He pleaded the Fifth Amendment. He would not answer that question. The second question, did you ever believe President Biden was unfit to execute his duties? Again, President Biden's White House position pleaded the Fifth Amendment. This is unprecedented, and I think that this adds more fuel to the fire, that there was a cover-up.
Yeah, more fuel to fire. There was a cover-up. No question about it. Dr. O'Connor refused any comment at all on Biden's health issues. In fact, I think he pled the fifth 15 times in about 20 minutes. Finally, they just said, nothing to be gained here. We're going to go ahead and call it quits at this committee meeting. I think he should be forced and compelled to testify. I don't know if he can be, but I think he should be compelled to testify any way we can get it done. That's what I would think. Look, he was the president's physician. Therefore, he's looking out for the president of the United States. Therefore, by extension, he's supposed to be looking out for you and I, for the folks. By making sure, look, Mr. President, we've got a concern here. But just like everything else, it gets covered up, lied about, and then peddled by the likes of Chicken Noodle News and MSNBC as somehow that Joe Biden was the hardworking, dedicated, sharp as a tack, and all that other nonsense. He could do one-handed push-ups while working out algebra in his head. Please. We knew better then. We know better now. There's another cover-up for you. There's a stack of cover-ups right here on the desk now. How about Jeffrey Epstein? His own brother says please. Please. Laughs at the idea that it's stupid that there's an FBI memo defending controversial suicide ruling. Mark Epstein claims officials are trying to quash evidence his brother was most likely murdered in federal custody. Then, of course, there's the cover-up of the Chinese driver's licenses hidden by Christopher Wray and the folks at the FBI after they found 20,000 fake driver's licenses at Chicago's O'Hare International Airport. Just one cover-up after another. It's a typical day in Washington, apparently. This is how they run the thing, right? Apparently. We'll keep an eye on all of it. We'll continue to tear back the curtain. It's what we do here. We do it for you. Sometimes I do it for me because I want to know. So maybe I do it for all of us. While the elites got rich from investing in crypto, where were you? Left behind? Not anymore. Block Trust IRA is changing that, bringing opportunity to real Americans like you. Crypto is fueling President Trump's America First economic miracle. Now is your chance to join in. Their Animus AI trading platform runs 24/7, crushing old school strategies, helping patriots like you build wealth just like the elites. The number one crypto tech platform named by Bitcoin Magazine, Block Trust IRA offers up to $200 million in protection. Their clients are seeing returns as high as 250%. Teacher, trucker, retiree, doesn't matter. Get $2,500 in bonus crypto when you sign up. Go to SteveGruberCrypto.com. SteveGruberCrypto.com. Get in the game yourself. SteveGruberCrypto.com. I'll be back. So here's a story, and I had forgot about this guy, poor guy. But Douglas Mackey was found guilty in 2023 of interfering in the 2016 presidential election because he put out a meme. He put out a meme, and here's what it said. Avoid the line, vote from home, text Hillary to 59925. Vote for Hillary, be part of history. He's basically saying you could text your vote in. It was a meme. Yeah, well, the U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals, yesterday overturned that election interference conviction. Found guilty for interfering in the 2016 presidential race with a meme that appeared to try to appeal to Hillary Clinton voters. So the court wrote in its decision that Mackey argued that the evidence was insufficient to prove that he knowingly agreed to join the charged conspiracy. We agree accordingly. We reverse Mackey's conviction and remand the case to the district court with instructions to enter a judgment of acquittal. Good for him. Free speech. Free speech. Making a comeback in America. God bless us for that. Speaking of free speech, Hillsdale College believes in that, and I believe in Hillsdale College. And if you're frustrated by the gridlock in Washington, you're like all of us. We wonder why Congress can't seem to get a lot done. Some things here and there, but not the way we'd like. Man, we'd like to see some of these rescission bills go faster, wouldn't we? But there's a way to understand how we got here. What can be done about it? Hillsdale College presents a free online course, Congress, How It Worked, Why It Doesn't, taught by Hillsdale's own Dr. Kevin Porteous. This course reveals the original purpose of Congress, how the founders designed it to work, and why today's dysfunction isn't an accident. You'll explore key moments in American history, the role of partisanship, how changes in rules, incentives, and culture have reshaped our legislature for better and for worse. And the best part, it's all free, like every Hillsdale course, no tuition, no strings attached. Just great viewing and great education. Join thousands of Americans who've taken this course to become informed, empowered citizens. Enroll today at gruberforhillsdale.com. Start watching immediately. That's gruberforhillsdale.com. Click on the catalog to find this course and much more. Join me and rediscover the promise of representative government with Hillsdale College. I love Hillsdale College's courses. When I come back, Hans von Spakovsky will join me here on the program. Don't go anywhere. You may have noticed, like I have, that there seems to be one justice in the United States Supreme Court that seems out of step with all of them. Doesn't seem to care much about, oh, I don't know, the law, the Constitution, her oath to the Constitution. These things don't seem to matter to Ketanji Brown Jackson much. It just seems that way. I think that became a lot more clear here with an 8-1 Supreme Court ruling on Donald Trump being able to fire federal employees. Hans von Spakovsky is a manager of Election Law and Reform Initiative and a senior legal fellow at the Edwin Meese Center for Legal and Judicial Studies. Where else but the Heritage Foundation? He joins me now. Hans, nice to see you back on the program.
Well, thanks for having me back.
Look, 8-1. Donald Trump can, in fact, fire federal employees. If I've read this pretty clearly, it's pretty clear. But here she is standing out on an island, doesn't care. Ketanji Brown Jackson. Even her liberal colleagues won't join her dissents. They're like, whoa, we'll be over here. You good luck over there. It's pretty telling, isn't it? She is out of her depth.
You know, I think that's absolutely right. And look, I don't think she'd recognize the Constitution if you put it in front of her. If you read her latest dissent very carefully, and this is now a series of dissents she's written, they're basically emotional diatribes, unconnected to the Constitution, unconnected to the law. And this latest example is just more of the same. Every time she writes a dissent, she basically is demonstrating that she was never qualified to be put on the court in the first place.
No, she was not. I mean, the last dissent here just a couple of weeks ago, Amy Coney Barrett shredded her. I mean, it shredded her in a way that I've never seen before, basically saying your arguments are so, frankly, stupid, I'm not even going to respond to them. And 6 members of the United States Supreme Court signed that. This is usually a collegial group. They usually, Scalia and his liberal colleagues, very close, good friends. Right. If you go back, liberals and conservatives, good friends on all of this. It seems that we've lost it. I don't think she could persuade anybody on anything at this point. And you always have to look to the next decision, Hans, to say, hey, I might need somebody to come across the line. How do I convince them? She's got zero capital in there, doesn't she?
She does. And the decision you were just talking about that Amy Coney Barrett wrote and that the other 5 conservative justices joined, it was also significant in that fact, there were 3 dissenters, Kagan, Sotomayor, and Jackson, but Kagan and Sotomayor did not join Jackson's dissent. That also tells you that they thought even her dissent went too far, even when they weren't agreeing, when the other 2 justices weren't agreeing with the majority. Look, this particular case, the idea is, as you know, the CEO president of a private corporation has the ability to hire or fire anyone in that company. The Constitution gives the president exactly the same power. He's the head of the executive branch. And the idea that he can't hire and fire the individuals working for him is just absurd. Plus, it's a clear violation of the Constitution if you say that. And remember, in this case, Steve, and Sotomayor makes a point of saying this in her concurrence, is what was at stake was an executive order in which the president was telling the Office of Personnel Management, right, OPM, they're basically the Human Resources Department of the federal government, come up with a plan to restructure, reorganize, and reduce and force the federal government. And yet you had this rogue judge in California saying, oh, you can't even plan to do that, which is just an absurd ruling, totally divorced from the law.
Yeah, it is divorced from the law. You know, as I look at this court, and the more I become familiar with this court, people say it's a 6-3 conservative court. I don't think that's true, Hans. You and I have talked about that in the past. I think it's 2-4-3 at best. 2 conservatives, 4 that on any given day can go any particular direction, and then 3 on the left-hand side of the column, if you will. I mean, the only true conservatives that are consistent are Thomas and Alito. Then you got the 4 in the middle, and then you've got the 3 on the left. I mean, am I wrong about that?
No, I think your analysis is right on point. But I would also let people know, remember, this term was a very good term. I mean, we had 6-3 decisions. The 6 moderate and conservatives all stuck together on the most important issues before the court. Everything from keeping kids out of pornographic websites to also cases in which they said that if you're going to sue for discrimination, the same standard applies to everybody. I mean, those are all very, very important decisions, and also the one on universal injunction saying the courts don't have the power to do that. Which again, that was a significant
And
win for the
strangely
president.
enough, I'm glad you
Yeah.
brought that up because strangely enough, since that decision, we've seen a couple of rogue judges try to do the same thing anyway. Does
Right.
anybody care about the law in this country anymore? If you're a leftist with a black robe, you seem like you don't care a lot about the rule of law, frankly. Am I
Yeah,
wrong?
no, that is, look, Steve, that is a problem, and we saw that just within the last 2 weeks when the Justice Department had to go back to court, back to court to tell the Supreme Court that a judge in Massachusetts was defying the emergency stay the court had issued, and the court came out with an order last week saying, no, our stay meant what it meant, and we assume you will comply with it, you, the judge in Massachusetts. So that was unprecedented too. I've never seen an order like that come out. And in that case, Kagan actually joined the majority saying, look, I didn't agree with your original stay, but we can't have district court judges refusing to follow what the Supreme Court did. So even there, Justice
Yeah.
Kagan joined the majority.
Well, she should. I mean, at some point, she could be in the majority. Hopefully not
Right.
soon. Hopefully not ever, but it's possible. Let me look forward here real quick, Hans. What big cases for next year that can be pivotal that have already made it to the docket?
Well, the biggest cases they took, and this is going to affect states all over, is they took two cases from Idaho and West Virginia, where those states passed laws saying that biological men cannot participate in women's sports. Naturally, they were sued by a whole group of left-wing groups, and the Supreme Court has taken that case, and that's probably the most important case on their docket because it's going to be an issue of protecting girls and women all over the country.
Title IX. What does it mean?
Yes.
Is Title IX real or is Title IX not real? Of course it's real.
Right.
University of Pennsylvania finally coming out of its deep liberal slumber and saying, we're going to take away all these things from Leah Thomas, records, victories, all that sort of thing. Smart. Hans, always appreciate you being here, my friend. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.
All right, good stuff there. Yeah, Ketanji Brown Jackson, she's on an island by herself. Even the furry creatures on the island don't agree with her. They're like, who are you? Why are you here? There you have it. All right, we're going to take a break. It's the Steve Gruber Show. You can find out more. Follow me at stevegruber.com. That's the website. You can read Liberty Page every day. By the way, Liberty doing some great Saturday satire. You're going to love that. Liberty Page, Saturday satire at stevegruber.com. Plus, follow me on Twitter and Truth, Facebook, all of them. Slap that like button. Get on with it. I'll be back. All right, quick update for you now, just so people know. I talked about it here on the program last week, but I did. My dog Cody went. What do we call this? The Rainbow Bridge. Yeah. But I will tell you, and I truly believe this, that Cody's life was extended and made much more positive by a couple of years, maybe, because we gave her CBD. And I didn't believe it at the time. I'm like, really, CBD? Come on. Is it really going to work? It worked for the dog. The dog knows no input from me. She just knew that she ate her food. She felt better. She was more frisky. She lived to be almost 16 and a half. Blue heeler, for those of you wondering. Blue heeler, cattle dog. So I got to say, I'm a believer. Tim Roberts is my friend and colleague here on the program, owner of Patriots Relief. It is a CBD company, which is not at all marijuana. It's CBD, and it's worked for stress, pain, sleep. That's what it's used for mostly. Tim, welcome back to the program. You can't make a dog 5 years old again, but you can make their elder years much more wonderful, and they were for her. So I'm pleased because I met you and you said you should try this for your dog, and I'm like, come on. You said, no, seriously, try it. It really worked. Tim, welcome back.
Hey, thanks for having me. And sorry to hear about Cody and it.
Well, it happens.
But what you're saying, yeah, it does. There's nothing. It happens to all of them. It makes it sad. It sometimes makes you wonder, why do we get these animals? And they do bring so much joy into our life, right? But there's always that end time, and the Rainbow Bridge, and it's a sad time for sure.
Yeah, but the good news is you talked me into saying, hey, you should try this CBD tincture, which is basically drops that we put into her food. Man, it made a difference. It certainly did. Made her obviously she had less pain. She was bounced around more. And then, you got to the end of the road. But the fact of the matter is, I truly believe that her life was extended by a couple of years in large part because of Patriots Relief products. And so that's good.
Yeah,
but it's also for people, pain, stress, sleep problems. You address all those things. And you've got some great specials today as well. But this is the natural way to get it. If you don't want pharmaceuticals or heavy drugs or whatever it is, and most of us don't, people are looking for natural relief all the time. This is one of the ways to do it, isn't it?
Right, absolutely. Our pets are just an example. Like you said, you couldn't tell Cody what you were giving her, and just responded. So that's the thing. Is everybody has this endocannabinoid system, this ECS, the system that's designed for maintaining balance in our body, maintaining homeostasis, and like you say, whether it's stress, anxiety, sleep, pain, these are all reasons why people use CBD. And we have so many different people that call in, and they've got their different stories and what's going on. And they've got a dog that when the fireworks are going off, it used to freak out, and now that they have that dog on CBD, it minimizes that. And it's the same thing for people. You have a hard time shutting your brain down at night to go to sleep. The CBD helps calm all of that. It's all about just relaxing, maintaining balance. So you've got these receptors all over your body, and your body is actually supposed to produce its own form of CBD, which is like the fuel that this system needs to function. And age, genetics, environment, all of these things cause our bodies to not produce its own. So we just bring it in from the plant. We bring it in from industrial hemp. It's the most abundant source for CBD. We bring that the CBD in from there, either a tincture, a gummy, a soft gel, and it just energizes that system, gives it the fuel that it needs to function correctly. We have, you've seen people with Parkinson's and the shakes and stuff. That I've got several people now that called me up, said, "Hey, we just got diagnosed with this, or my husband just got diagnosed with this. What can we do?" We got the product out to them. They call back the next week. The tremors at night have completely gone away. the tremors during the day are down 50%. Then the next time I talk to them, they're down to like 10%. So it's not the cure all for everything, but when you understand how that system works and that it needs this CBD, the fuel, it needs that fuel in order to function, to make us, feel better. It just all makes sense.
All right, well, let's get to it. What's the offer today? Whether it's for your dog or for you or for whoever. What's our offer today? I know you've always got great offers for Gruber listeners and Gruber viewers. So what do you got, Tim?
Absolutely. We're doing 40% off. We have free shipping. We have that new website where we're still working through some of the perfecting it, I would say. So anybody that places an order today, we're going to give them $10 store credit. We did that last time. That was a great promo. We also have a new bundle system that we're testing behind the scenes, so you don't really see it on your end. But if you want to put a couple of things together into a bundle, hey, just give us a call, 877-230-1776. We'll help put that bundle together for you, and it'll save you a few extra dollars on top of the 40% off and the free shipping.
There you go. What a deal. You can find it all at patriotsrelief.com. Brand new website, as he just said. Combo sales, always a big winner. People love that. 40% off plus free shipping. Promo code is what, Tim?
I believe that's Gruber. Gruber.
You are a clever man. You are a clever man, Tim Roberts. 877-230-1776 is your phone number, too. If you like the old school deal, 877-230-1776. Tim, thank you for being here, as always.
Thank you. Thank you, Steve. God bless.
There you have it. God bless you, my friend. There you have it. Patriotsrelief.com, 40% off. How do you beat that? And it really did. Look, it helped my dog out. I truly believe that. I'll always believe that. In fact, if I ever need it for my dogs going forward, I have two still. We're animal lovers here at Team Gruber. We are. So if it can help the dog, it can help you and me. That's been my theory, patriotsrelief.com. When I come back, higher tariff rates for some countries. I'll tell you who they are and what their numbers are going to be if they don't get their acts together. Straight ahead on the Steve Gruber Show. All right, so tariff rates going up for some folks that are not paying attention to the warnings being issued by the Trump administration, of course. Higher tariff rates for probably not some big trading partners. Probably not going to lose a lot of sleep over this one, folks. You're probably just not. Let's see here. Libya, Iraq, Algeria, Moldova, Brunei, and well, maybe the Philippines, I suppose. Might have had something there. Let's see. The Philippines charge the lowest tariff rate, 20%. Brunei, Moldova, 25%. 30% rates on Algeria, Iraq, and Libya. All right, so there you go. Not huge. But you know who got drilled yesterday? Brazil got drilled, 50%. And he said the reason the president said that Brazil got hit so hard was not just because of their bad trading practices, but also because of their attacks on free speech and American social media companies. Yeah, American social media companies, in addition to everything else, because they've been attacking social media companies, censoring platforms, so forth. He said you can't do that. I agree with him, Mr. President. If you can use trade as a way to make sure that they protect free speech, you've got my blessing, because we believe in free speech here. It's the number one. Free speech is number one to us here, to me for sure. Say what you need to say. If it offends me, well, then it offends me. If I offend you, well, then use your remote. Here's something that doesn't offend me. Well-Connect geothermal. What a great system. And now for people in Maine and New Hampshire and New York and Montana and Missouri and Michigan and all these places across the country, the Well-Connect is available to you. It's a tremendous system. It uses the well in your yard to create a hybrid geothermal system using your existing furnace, your existing air conditioner. You could save up to 90% on your utilities. Go to wellconnectgeo.com. You're going to be blown away by this. It's patented. It's been around for more than a decade. It's in thousands of homes already in the northern half of the country. WellConnect Geo, wellconnectgeo.com. Great partners of this program. We believe in what they do. wellconnectgeo.com. I'll take a break. It's the Steve Gruber Show. Glad to see you on a Thursday. I'll be right back. All right, lighting the fuse on another big hour here of the Steve Gruber Show. Glad to have you along for the conversation. Thank you for joining us here today. Three big things you need to know from the Foxhole of Freedom today. Number one, bait and switch. Chuck Schumer warns of bitter funding fights over the Republican cuts to the budget because they just think they can spend money forever and never have any issue with that. Number two, the Department of Justice lands a big victory. Federal judge allowing $800 million in grants to be clawed back. The court says it's potentially harmful, but that's the law, and there's nothing they can do about it. And number three, you and I have not talked about this much because I've not been here in the mornings for the last couple of days, just taking a couple of half days off, still working in the afternoons on America's Voice Live and Real America Network, but we've not talked much about the Texas floods. Here are the latest numbers that I have. 120 dead. But remarkably, 173 still missing. 120 dead, 173 still missing. That means the death toll could reach as high as close to 300. It's a terrible tragedy. A terrible tragedy. But the idea that somehow it's Donald Trump's fault or your fault because you voted for Donald Trump is absolutely disgusting. Look, I didn't like what happened in Western North Carolina after Hurricane Helene. I didn't like any of it. The reaction, the response, FEMA dragging its feet, or after hurricanes that hit Florida or the fires that hit Maui. I didn't like the reaction. I didn't like the fact that if you had a Trump sign in your yard, they would skip your house. We know that happened. Obviously, that's very offensive. It's infuriating. But I never blamed Joe Biden for a fire or a hurricane or a flood. I mean, who does that? Who honestly, who does that? What is wrong with you? If Donald Trump's fault, you voted for Donald Trump. That's these people in Texas, they deserve what they got. Really? Really, little girls swept away by floodwaters at Camp Mystic, they deserved what they got because they were white Christians? That's absolutely what was happening. Even some of the Obama brothers, the Obama bros, say that's too far. On Pod Save America, the podcast, they're calling out those who have said such terrible things. So I give them credit over there at Pod Save America for actually having the honesty to tell the truth. Guess what? The Guadalupe River has flooded many times before. 1987, by the way, not that long ago. A worse flood by far. But the difference was this. It didn't happen on a 4th of July holiday weekend when all those campgrounds are full. Didn't happen then. The timing of this, spectacularly awful. And then, of course, you had the warning systems that were activated, but some of them were not activated in Kirk County for hours. Oh, and then you've got the fire chief in Austin, Texas, who could have sent people ahead of time who are well-versed in this. Fast water emergency rescues. Didn't send them. Nah, I'm not sending them. He's getting a vote of no confidence. They want him out of his job. We'll get to that. But let's start with this. How evil are Democrats? Well, here's one saying if we had elected Kamala Harris, the kids in Texas wouldn't have been killed. Listen.
It's a hard pill to swallow, huh? The fact that if you would have just voted for Kamala, that those kids in Texas and all those families in the RVs would more than likely still be alive. But instead you just made fun of her laugh while people were screaming at you that if he was voted in, people were going to die. And look where we are. A bunch of parents who can't protect their own kids.
So if Kamala Harris had been elected president, those kids would most likely still be alive. What kind of dark soul do you have? It didn't rain when Joe Biden was president. We didn't have hurricanes when Barack Obama was president. Seriously? What is wrong with you? Apparently, we had no hurricanes or tornadoes in the 1960s when Kennedy and Johnson were president. I mean, come on. Seriously, what is wrong? What is your malfunction? Your soul is so dark and you are so jaded that you would actually think that if Kamala Harris was elected, those little kids would be alive. It's just terrible. Anyhow, a lot more going on. We'll keep an eye on that death toll count. NASA has a special plane in the air now, trying to find those that are still missing. And the problem was this. You're not just looking on the ground. In fact, a number of the bodies have been recovered from treetops because the water gets up, the bodies are snagged in the tops of trees, the water comes down, and, well, or there's debris, piles and piles of debris, feet deep. Got cadaver dogs there, special aircraft. It's a heartbreaking situation, to say the least. And like I say, we'll keep you up to speed on it. In other more positive news, the United States stepping forward as the world's leading supplier of liquefied natural gas. This is all part of the energy policy of Donald Trump, moving us forward away from Green New Deal nonsense and toward a prosperous America where we supply energy to the world. Listen to this.
There is some non-OPEC related energy news today. Venture Global, publicly traded VG, making a deal with Germany. They will now be the largest exporter. The U.S. will be the largest exporter of liquefied natural gas to Germany on the back of that deal.
So the United States sending our liquefied natural gas to Germany, as we should have from the beginning. Donald Trump told them. Germany, do not make some deal with Russia to get natural gas. Terrible idea. You'll be funding your enemy. Russia, by the way, launching its biggest military assault on Ukraine in quite some time. Yesterday, it did hundreds and hundreds of drones. Yeah, hundreds and hundreds of drones. Here's a little, back to Texas for just one moment here. Jasmine Crockett, your favorite, right? Your hero, Jasmine Crockett, is now the leading candidate. The leading candidate for the Democrats to run for U.S. Senate in Texas. Boy, I hope so. Listen.
So anyway, I just wanted to jump on because my heart is truly heavy for all of these families. The sad part is I think that my heart is going to carry a level of weight that will continue to weigh me down as we have to continue to do our best to survive an administration that literally is against us. An administration that is doing everything, in my mind, to hurt us and not help us. And it feels like we're fending for ourselves.
Yeah. Okay. So she's the leading candidate. I'll be heavy in my heart, but she hates us. She truly does. She doesn't like us one bit. And that's a fact. Doesn't like us one bit. Jasmine Crockett, the leading candidate, leading the polling, I swear, to be the Democrat candidate for Senate, U.S. Senate, from the state of Texas. Wow. All right, we're going to take a break. Glad to have you here on a Thursday. So much time. Don't forget, tomorrow, Patriot Mobile's Free for All Friday and Patriot Mobile's Common Sense Hotline. You can call in, be part of the program. Don't forget to follow me on Truth Social today and Instagram, X, and Facebook. Make sure you become part of this movement. I'll be right back. So much that has happened. Talking about that Texas thing and all of that, the Supreme Court decisions, the tariffs, the cover-ups. So much to cover here any given day. Today, though, let's talk about the DEI, how it still infects West Point. I was at the West Point graduation here just a few weeks ago. What a remarkable experience for me. I'd never been there, the long gray line. Will Tebow is the director of the American Military Project at the Center for the American Way of Life. He joins me now. Will, thank you for being here.
Yep. Morning, Steve. Thank you.
Yeah, what an honor it was for me to be at the West Point graduation. President Trump came and spoke, and for me, it was the first time I'd ever been there for such an event. 1,002 cadets became new second lieutenants in the United States military. It was beautiful. But DEI infecting West Point. DEI, a problem there, and it's still infecting. When you say that, I mean, obviously there's been a change in leadership, an attempt to change the culture, but this dates back far before Joe Biden's one term in office, right? This has been an evolution of sorts, right?
You get it, Steve. West Point has had racial quotas for admissions classes since 1965. Their policies to ensure the racial makeup of the cadets, the core cadets that you saw a few weeks ago, have been, they would make the Ivy League blush, I say. And it's not to bring this up is not to degrade the institution, but to call this quintessential, indispensable American institution to be better. And the reality is, while there has been paper compliance, West Point has simply renamed classes, departments, given DEI officials new titles. But in reality, there are still people who wanted to have classes that, for example, deconstructed patriotism or examined the history of cross-dressing in the military. These are all people still employed.
Wait. Stop. Whoa. There's really a study of cross-dressing in the military? That cannot possibly be serious.
Dr. Ender is a professor at West Point who has long been a proponent of classes and studies literally titled Examining the History of Cross-Dressing in the Army. This is not about trying to burn books or have cancel culture. It's trying to maintain the integrity of an institution that must be focused on the military profession. There are certain things that have no place at West Point, and it's okay to talk about that.
That's absolutely insane. What history of cross-dressing in the military? That's a 5-minute class.
Well, right. I mean, the point is, Steve, that there is clearly an agenda, and like you said, it's an agenda that predates the Obama administration by decades, an agenda to make the military look like civil society. So if we see perverse ideologies manifest in civilian life, then we must affirm and acknowledge them and perhaps even host seminars about them in the military. My work at Claremont and our project writ large is to try and reestablish the military as an institution that is set apart from the politics and ideologies of civilian life. And that's why, people who have these interests should study them in the Ivy League and should perhaps, go to other private universities where the graduates are not going to be leading American soldiers in combat, perhaps really soon.
Yeah, this is that's absolutely insanity. We need to clean up our act. And so let me ask you about Pete Hegseth, Secretary of Defense. Give me your thoughts on him, a few weeks or months now, I guess, into his position. He was targeted clearly by the left. They tried to get him in Signal Gate. They tried to, impugn him every step of the way. But he seems to be, from what I can tell, pretty well liked by military people. I have a lot of friends that are former military, right? And I know a couple people that are in the military, but former military is what I have the most interaction with. And the people that would know, that have experience, that have been in the military and looking at it from the outside now, retired, say, I like him. I like what he's doing. I like what his focus is. What are your thoughts?
Steve, let's frame it first. Again, for decades, we have had typically qualified, polite, and respectful caretakers of the military's decline be the Secretary of Defense. We have prioritized the formal qualifications of stars on your uniform or PhDs or think tank positions. These have been the beltway qualifications of secretaries of defense who have driven our military into the ground. Pete Hegseth is someone different. It means he's going to operate differently. He's going to drive towards the change American voters elected President Trump to inflict on the military. And I think it would only happen with Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth. There might be some bumps along the way, but I think that is the price of change. And you can tell that the knives are always out for him, seemingly every week, which for my mind says that he is doing the right thing to restore the military to excellence, a critical task that secretaries of defense long before him were never able to do. But from weapons innovation to DEI to recruiting, Pete Hegseth has just done it. He's put the changes in place that can make our military relevant and effective in the 21st century. And you can't underscore how important that is to our nation.
I completely agree with that. Could not agree more. Will Tebow, greatly appreciate you being here. It's a new day, hopefully at West Point as well. Hopefully we continue to ferret out this nonsense. Who would waste time? I'm pretty sure China is not wasting time on cross-dressing history and Chinese military. I'm just going to throw it out there. Will, greatly appreciate you bringing this to our attention. We'll have you back soon. Thank you so much. We're going to take a break. Still to come today, Mike Rogers, running for U.S. Senate, will be here. We're also going to talk about big, beautiful bill, the border, ICE agents being attacked. Unbelievable, the attack. Another arrest, by the way. That brings to 11 the number of people for the one attack. The other gentleman, of course, from Michigan, is dead. We'll continue with the Steve Gruber Show in just a moment. All right, back to it as we plow through all the a lot of back stories that I have to get through here. I mean, took some half days off, just take a little breather here in the middle of summer. The Secret Service suspended 6 of its agents. We've just learned following that attempted assassination attempt on Donald Trump. Can you imagine? In a couple of days, that'll have been a year ago. A year, July 13th, Butler, Pennsylvania, right? Well, we learned from the Secret Service Deputy Director Matt Quinn that the agency actually suspended 6 agents that were tasked with protecting Donald Trump during that Pennsylvania visit. 10 to 42 days of unpaid leave, placed in restricted roles with less responsibility when they return to the job. Matt Quinn telling CBS Wednesday that they weren't going to fire their way out of this problem, but did say they're laser focused on fixing the root cause of the problem. I wonder if that's DEI and wokeness as well. I mean, you have to ask yourself, right? Is it DEI and wokeness that led us to this problem as well? You wonder, don't you? I mean, I do. I wonder. How did we get there? How did that happen? And of course, no answers. Talking about cover-ups, where we started today's conversation. What about the assassination attempt in Butler? There's a cover-up for you. We don't know the answers that we should have. What about the attempted assassination, the second one, at the golf course, where the guy was holed up in the fence line, in the trees for a day? We need answers, my friends. We need answers. Are you tired of hard water ruining your appliances, staining your sinks, drying out your skin? At Wolverine Water Systems, they've been delivering pure, clean, great-tasting water to the state of Michigan and its families for more than 75 years. Whether it's well water or city water, our American-made water softeners and filtration systems are custom-built to fix your water problems, period. Go to WolverineWaterSystems.com for a free in-home water test. That's WolverineWaterSystems.com. Yeah, a free in-home water test. Tell you what's going on with your water. Are you good? Not good? Something you can do about it? WolverineWaterSystems.com. My great friends over there tell Paul Mahaney I sent you on over. He'll be glad you did. We'll take a break and be right back. All right, as I told you here a short time ago, the fatalities have now official fatality rate in Texas from the floods 120. More than 170 people still missing. When it's all said and done, it could be close to 300 people killed in this devastating flood. Remarkable, truly. Eamon Blair is a senior fellow at the Texas Public Policy Foundation. We're going to start there. Eamon, welcome to the program. Glad you're here. You're in Texas, of course. Give us an idea. They're still looking for those lost in the floods, more than 170. It seems like that number goes up every day. Not a good sign. Devastating flood. Terrible timing, 4th of July weekend. And all these people packed into campgrounds when this Guadalupe River went wild. Thank you for being here. What can you tell us?
Sure. Right now, it's really catastrophic on the ground there in multiple areas in multiple cities in that area. But there are a lot of organizations that have come out to help, whether that is Team Rubicon, United Cajun Navy, Texas Search and Rescue. So you have our law enforcement has a lot of organizations that are out there that are banding to help. So it's probably a lot different than what you saw during Hurricane Helene, where you saw sometimes state governments not wanting or allowing non-profit organizations to come in and help with the relief efforts. But right now, just like you said, it is devastating here in Texas. And that's why Governor Abbott placed 4 items of disaster response on the special session announcement yesterday.
Yeah. 300 people, it would seem to me, if you're in Texas, actually across the country, there's people from my home state of Michigan that were affected by this tragedy, probably all over the country. People know somebody, either directly or indirectly connected to this. And it is, wow, I can't even imagine for the people still on the ground looking for more than 170 people still missing. All right, we'll leave that there for now. Let's go on to some other business. The big, beautiful bill, it is passed now. What do you guys at the Public Policy Foundation think about the bill, what's in it, what was not in it, what you'd like to see, what you were not happy about? Just break it down for me a little bit.
Sure. The big, beautiful bill is really just an open door for us now to do the hard work. Whether that's going to be now the hiring process of the 10,000 ICE agents, whether that is how we should go about acquiring or procuring all the technology needed for the wall projects and everything else like that. So right now is actually the difficult time. It may have seemed difficult to try to get this passed in Congress, but because of unfortunately our outdated processes of, like I said, procurement for technology at the border, now is the time for us to really band together, whether that's our policy institute here in Texas, in terms of giving them good policy and direction as to how they can handle it in Texas, as it's very different here in the state of Texas versus California, Arizona, and New Mexico, specifically since 95% of our border is private property, and it's not operation controlled by U.S. Northcom.
You look at the border, though, remarkable numbers. When Donald Trump said he would close the border, I believed him, and I believed he could get it tightened right down and quickly. But one of the numbers that sticks out to me is the number from May. Not a single illegal was released into the United States. That same month in 2024, May of 24, it was over 62,000 that were just released, down to zero. You've got facilities in places like San Diego and Arizona closing altogether because there's no illegals coming through. There's nobody to serve, nobody to deal with. It's a remarkable accomplishment, isn't it?
Oh, 100%. And I attribute that really to U.S. Northcom being delegated or given the charge to actually control the border. Look, the Department of Homeland Security has never really been able to secure the border. The cartels have outmanned, outgunned, and outfunded them from the very beginning. And so it actually really took a whole of government or whole of society approach to try to secure that border. And now, of course, the cartels are operating just as they are as foreign terrorist organizations, and they're figuring out right now how to bypass everything that is currently happening. And so that's whether the use of drones and then also the use of the Gulf of America is really our key vulnerabilities right now.
Yeah. Let me ask you about something else. Because we've seen this in the headlines. There was just another arrest on the one attack of Laredo, Texas, I believe it was. 11 people in custody now, all facing life in prison. There were fireworks shot. There were guns fired. These people showed up in bulletproof vests, dressed for war, basically. And just a day or two before that, a guy from Michigan shot and killed when he attacked an ICE facility at the border. There's 2 attacks in a couple of days. 1 assailant dead, 11 behind bars, possibly forever, as I believe they should be. But it's the rhetoric of the left attacking the idea that we should have a secure border, I believe, that fuels this insanity of this violence. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, 100%. Unfortunately, on our own American streets, it looks like a third world country. When I was overseas in the Middle East, all of our allied partners had to wear masks. And that was because of the attacks on not just from their own citizens, but the foreign terrorist organizations. And so it's sad that our own personnel, our law enforcement personnel, have to wear masks as if we're in a third world country. And this is going to continue. The attacks are going to continue until there's actual something actually happens to these public officials that are inciting such terror and such actions. So if this continues to go unabated, we're just going to continue to see more attacks on our law enforcement.
Yeah. What do you think the penalty should be? I mean, I think we're talking life in prison for some of these folks involved in this one attack, the 11 folks. How do we curb this? How do we set an example? I'm sorry, sometimes people got to be used to show the world this is not going to be tolerated. What should the penalties be, do you think?
And really, if you can really tie it to the Mexican cartels, if they're assisting anyone with the cartels that are firing this, or like if we finally designate Antifa and organizations like them as domestic terrorists, then those same charges for aiding and abetting a terrorist organization need to be met with these public officials.
I agree with that. So Donald Trump did label the Mexican drug cartels as an example of terrorist organizations. I haven't seen it applied much yet. That'd be my concern here, Eamon. I've not seen it applied. Maybe I've missed the headline. There's a lot going on every single day, and I can understand if it got lost in the noise somewhere, but labeling them as terrorist organizations should allow us to open the toolbox against these Mexican drug cartels for a variety of operations, and I haven't seen it happen yet. I'll give you the last word on that. What is next? What should we do? What should we do with the cartels?
Really, it should be states. Just as you said, there's actually been only one case since they've been designated. And so right now, the federal government is only so big, and we're seeing some inaction from our attorney general. Therefore, it's going to be the states that are going to have to step in. It's going to be your local officials. It's going to be your county sheriffs, your state law enforcement, working hand in hand with the 287G program and Tom Homan and the Department of Homeland Security and that task force model. That is really the model. It has to be bottom up, not top down.
There you go. Eamon Blair, Senior Fellow of the Texas Public Policy Foundation. Great organization, by the way. Eamon, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, sir, for having me.
Really appreciate it. Take a break. When I come back, Mike Rogers, running for U.S. Senate in Michigan, will be with me. I'll be here on the Steve Gruber Show. Let's jump right back into it now with Mike Rogers. He's running for U.S. Senate in the state of Michigan. Came very close last November, lost by 0.3 of a point. He's jumping back in for the open seat in Michigan now. He joins me now. Mike, nice to have you back on the program.
Steve, always good to be back. Thanks for having me.
Glad to have you. All right, I'm going to talk about something here that I think is remarkable and disturbing all at the same time, and that is the release of information from the CIA director, John Ratcliffe, saying that there was an organized effort by Barack Obama, James Comey, John Brennan, and others to undermine and lie about Donald Trump, create this whole Russia hoax. James Comey, former FBI director, also right there front and center in this whole idea that Donald Trump had some sort of interaction with Russia. What is going on with the FBI, the CIA, even Barack Obama in this? Look, we're just getting all this information now. We've speculated on all this in the past, but here it looks like it's very much real, Mike. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, no, listen, there was a time when the FBI and the agencies, came off the tracks. And I think we have just found out when and why they did that. And when you have the leadership engaging in that kind of political effort, that's really, really dangerous. And what we saw was the FBI became something that it wasn't. And I'm talking about the leadership. I'm not talking about the agents who are risking their lives. Yeah, there's two differences here. And because of the choices that were made by the leadership of the FBI at the time, and I had this conversation with Donald Trump at one point when he asked me what happened, and I said, I think James Comey happened. I think that's when the wheels for the FBI came off the cart. And when you put John Brennan, who was hyper partisan, I knew him when I was chairman, who he came from the White House. He was on their national security team, hyper partisan. I watched him dismantle really good intelligence programs, which to me were very hard to understand from the White House. Then he went over to the CIA, and all of this activity that we all know ended up in the Russia investigation hoax happened. And so, in any good investigation, you start narrowing down. And I think that because of that referral, we're going to know exactly when all of this nonsense started and how.
Well, it seems pretty clear. It seems clear that there were at least 4 people in the room at the beginning of this, and it's a conspiracy. But you have the former President Barack Obama, Brennan, Comey, and Clapper all in cahoots. It's pretty clear from the memo that was released, tying this whole intelligence community assessment together. Mike, if it's found that Barack Obama was in part orchestrating this, what should be done?
Yeah, I'm not sure about that part, honestly. I'm not even sure I should speculate. But if the evidence shows that certainly John Brennan and James Comey, the FBI director, were falsely feeding this narrative, right? Presenting false evidence to a judge is a crime. That is a crime. And they knew it. That's what's so concerning to me. They knew. And then, remember, along the way, we learned of some things that we saw happen, Steve. We saw that an FBI agent lied on a FISA application. It wasn't actually, let me repeat that. He wasn't an agent. He was an FBI lawyer.
Correct.
Which says a lot. That he falsified information that went to a FISA judge knowingly. That the leadership of the FBI signed off on a document they knew to be paid for by a third party, and they knew who that third party was. It was somebody that was trying to disparage what is now the president of the United States. We found those out. Now I think that what this is going to help do is find the origin of it. And so I say, let's let this thing play out. The facts ought to take us where the facts take us. And then something needs to be done. You need to show an example that this is unacceptable behavior. Yeah. And where are the Democrats in absolutely free fall about the elements of the government going after private citizens for political purposes? There are the ones
they're silent, Mike.
Chaos. Guess what? They caused this chaos. It's unbelievable.
Yeah, and raided Mar-a-Lago and all the things that happened. And then Christopher Wray, by the way, burying another investigation when they found 20,000 driver's licenses manufactured in China. Very good, by the way, fakes. Stopped at O'Hare, and that investigation got pushed to the side and buried, never discussed, even though that was happening in August of 2020. The FBI hopefully is under better leadership today. Real quickly, we got about a minute and a half here. I do want to have you weigh in on the big, beautiful bill. Your thoughts, what you like, what you don't like, what still needs to happen. We got about 90 seconds.
Yeah, too much spending. That has to change. But this was the first bite at this apple. Remember, you're not going to fix, the last 10 years of damage to our budget or the way the spending just exploded. They need to do a better job on that. But they've said that they are. I believe Mike Johnson, when he says he's coming back for another bite at this apple, this was the first start. That's what I didn't like about the bill. What I did like, securing the borders, finally. There's executive orders that were codified in there, which is great. It makes it harder for Democrats if they come in to change some of the things, like securing the borders. It did accelerated depreciation. And what that means to you and me is there's going to be better job opportunities in the state of Michigan because of that accelerated depreciation. We're investing in American workers. That's what that means to me. Huge. Stop the largest tax increase in the history of the country that the Democrats wanted, stopped it in its tracks, and gave tax relief to working people. Think of no tax on Social Security, no tax on tips, no tax on overtime. You want to talk about something that's going to have an impact here in Michigan, that certainly is going to do it. So all of those things I really, really liked. And by the way, first bite at the apple of trying to legislate on fraud, waste, and abuse, the size and scope of government, which has to be reduced. Listen, nobody's going to be
coming.
happy. Yeah, it's coming. It's going to happen, and it needs to happen. And by the way, it's not about the government closing down and going away, although many parts of it that might be a good idea. It's really about getting efficiency. You can't have 20 people operating a fax machine in Washington, D.C. anymore. That's got to go away.
Yeah. How many government agencies does it take to change a light bulb? Well, it's kind of a question that's outstanding. Mike Rogers, greatly appreciate you being here.
Actually want to change, Steve. That's the key.
Yeah. Well, you got to have to want change. All right. Mike, thank you for being here as always. You can find out more at rogersforsenate.com, I believe, is where you would find Mike. rogersforsenate.com. Mike, thank you.
Hey, thanks, Steve. Good to see you. Look forward to coming back.
Good to see you. All right, there you have it. We'll take a real quick break. We'll be right back. All right, sports fans, welcome back. It is time now for sports with our good friend Brock Palmbush.
League winners included Tampa Bay, Minnesota, and the LA Angels. National League winners included Philadelphia, Cincinnati, and Arizona. NBA news, a couple of big contracts were given out yesterday. The world champion Oklahoma City Thunder gave center Chet Holmgren a 5-year contract extension worth $239 million. Holmgren was a key component in the Thunder's run to the NBA championship last month. Also in the league, the Phoenix Suns gave their superstar Devin Booker a 2-year contract extension worth $145 million. He's now under contract with the Suns through 2030. And at Wimbledon, we're down to the Final Four in the singles competition. Jannik Sinner and Novak Djokovic won their quarterfinal matches yesterday. For the women, Iga Swiatek and Belinda Bencic moved to the semifinals. That's a look at sports. Back to you, Steve.
Thank you for that. Well, sports fans, there you have it. By the way, here's a little something for you. There is no such thing as a job an American won't do. You know how they always say Americans don't want to do those jobs. Americans won't do those jobs. Not true. How do I know? Well, here's how I know. Not a single industry, not one industry in America, not hotel work, not farm work, not any of it has a majority illegal labor force. No, illegals are being pumped into this country so that wealthy people can have cheap labor to make more money. That's the bottom line. You don't like hearing that, conservatives? Wake up. It's cheap labor. That's why they keep posturing for it, fighting for it, hoping they can save it. Cheap labor helps them. By the way, here's a note. If you're looking for high-quality pet food made right here in America, the best dog food you can find, Great Lakes Pet Food. It's the highest quality pork, chicken, turkey. Great Lakes Pet Food is the dog food I use for my herd of dogs, even though I got one smaller. Michigan made Great Lakes Pet Food. GreatLakesPetFood.com. You want the best dog food of your life made in America, not Chinese junk. GreatLakesPetFood.com. Trust me on this. My dog's been eating it for years and years. I'll take a break. We'll have more of the Steve Gruber Show in just a moment. Launching the rocket of freedom into orbit one more time. We do it every day here at the Steve Gruber Show, fighting for you from the foxhole of freedom. Having another great hour on tap here. Here are three big things you need to know this hour as we get into it. Number one, Ted Nugent. Michigan is suing farmers over pigs that don't exist. Yeah, pigs that don't exist. So says Ted Nugent. We'll get to that. Number two, Detroit schools are a self-described sanctuary district. Really? In defiance of federal law, apparently. And number three, from my friends at Michigan News Source, number three, emails show Governor Whitmer funnels taxpayer funds to donor-linked projects. It's raising alarms over the MEDC ties again. All roads lead back to Governor Gretchen Whitmer and one of her campaign donors who is under criminal investigation for misusing taxpayer money. In February of 22, Whitmer pressured Michigan lawmakers to earmark $15 million for a grant program supposedly tied to attracting international businesses to the state. Whitmer campaign donor Faye Baydoun received a piece of that pie for her nonprofit Global Link International. Name keeps coming up, doesn't it? Whitmer has attempted to downplay her involvement in giving the taxpayer money to her friend. However, the Detroit News, our friends down there, reportedly obtained emails that detail the governor's pet group, the Michigan Economic Development Corporation, playing a significant role in greasing the wheels so Baydoun would receive the grant. In addition, Baydoun served on MEDC's executive committee. So you're on the committee that approves the money. It's $15 million. Nothing to see here. Move along. Right, Governor. The grant, which has now been canceled, paid for a $4,500. What is a $4,500 coffee maker? It's got to be industrial strength. An $11,000 first-class airline ticket to Budapest. And Baydoun's annual salary of $550,000, among other things, of course. There's plenty more here. The uncovered information poses a circular mess for Whitmer and her friends. Whitmer had been pushing for Baydoun to get the money, and Baydoun served on MEDC's committee, which gave her the power to vote on the contract for MEDC CEO Quentin Messer. That's obviously a conflict of interest. The once powerful trifecta in Lansing, consisting of Whitmer, Secretary of State Jocelyn Benson, and Attorney General Dana Nessel, has weakened in recent months. On the 18th of June, agents with Nessel's office served a search warrant on Baydoun's home as part of an embezzlement investigation because they had run out of options. You couldn't hide it anymore. Today's theme of the program is cover-up. We've been talking about cover-up since the beginning of the program today, and this is just more of it. Baydoun's home served as a location of a Whitmer re-election campaign fundraiser in 21. In addition, Nessel's investigators raided the MEDC office the same day in Lansing. Oh boy, is it getting spicy and dicey in Lansing, Michigan. Yes, it is. Nessel's office determining that Benson's gubernatorial campaign launched in January violated campaign finance law. But the law doesn't have any punishment for violating it, something they probably knew. You can find this story and so many more great stories at MichiganNewsSource.com. MichiganNewsSource.com. It's my news company. You can trust them. Speaking of Michigan News Source, here's another headline for you. Detroit schools a self-described sanctuary district. Their immigration policy requires employees to immediately notify the parents of any students being sought by federal immigration enforcement. School officials have recently supported the policy adopted in 2019 and revised in 2021 after the Trump administration made deportation of illegals a priority. So there's your taxpayer dollars, again, defending and protecting those that are in this country illegally by whatever means. Now, having said that, I'm going to say this. Donald Trump floated the idea here recently of putting farmers in charge of ag workers from outside the country. And I'm okay with that. If you've got a guy that's working on your farm and he's been there for 15 or 20 years, you know his wife and you know his family, and he's been dedicated to your company, he's been working there, and you can vouch for him, which means you're on the hook for him, then maybe there's something to be discussed there. If you as a farmer can vouch for him or whoever you might be in, whatever industry you might be in, and this guy's been here for a number of years, not a path to citizenship, absolutely not. But maybe a path to legal employment so they can stay here and work. That's worth having a discussion. Mass amnesty, absolutely not. There was a rumor floating around that Donald Trump was going to offer mass amnesty like Ronald Reagan did. That's not going to happen. I can assure you that's not going to happen. Ted Nugent, I guess he's kind of a Michigan legend, be a fair way to put it. told the Michigan House Weaponization of Government Subcommittee that the Department of Natural Resources claims that pig farmers breed feral pigs, which are illegal. The department uses a faulty genetic test to determine feral pigs from non-feral pigs, according to Nugent's testimony. Well, for all of you who went to school in America, feral is an escaped domestic animal. He told the lawmakers he's being sued for something that does not exist, that there is no such species as a Russian boar. A Russian boar can only be a male pig that lives in Russia. It's not a species. Nugent was one of the large group of hunters and experts who testified about the department's tactics during a raucous hearing, if you missed it. He just sent me this, by the way, did Ted this morning. I've been friends with Ted for a long time. He said, read this, Gruber. All right, so I'm reading it. But I'm reading it to you because it's story hour here on the Steve Gruber Show. Dr. Barry Weiner, a veterinarian for more than 30 years, said the Department of Natural Resources uses a faulty genetic test for pigs. Faulty. Weiner told the committee he called Zoetis, the animal side of pharmaceutical giant Pfizer, to confirm that there is no test to distinguish a feral pig from a domesticated pig. There is no difference. Zoetis does not offer this type of genetic test. Michigan Capital Confidential asked the Natural Resources Department about the claim the genetic test was not developed by the Michigan Department of Natural Resources, said Ed Golder. Ed's a good guy, by the way. He's been there for a long time. He stated that it was developed by a team of scientists at the U.S. Department of Agriculture's Feral Swine Genetic Archive. The genetic testing method has been extensively validated and peer-reviewed, and it was published in 2 highly regarded scientific journals, said Golder. If this test is so widely used, why was the DNR using the ridiculously broad guidelines of the invasive species order to coerce farmers into killing their pigs on the spot? Yeah, I like Ed, but he might be wrong about this one. We'll just leave that there. We'll let you decide. You see, the difference between dog breeds, they can look very different, but they're all domestic canines. You get the point. At least I hope you do. Keep your shoes on, folks. That's going to be the new ruling. The TSA may end the 20-year shoes-off security rule. For nearly 20 years, travelers have endured the hassle of kicking off their shoes at airport security lines, all thanks to the notorious shoe bomber, Richard Reed, and his failed terror plot back in 2001. Looks like that's going to change. According to the AP, the agency plans to allow passengers to keep their shoes on during screenings at many U.S. airports starting this Sunday, July 13th, with a nationwide rollout expected soon. Keep your shoes on, folks. That'll make life a little bit easier. I travel quite a bit, and taking the shoes off, always a bit of a hassle. So that'll be good news, all right? Good news for us. Let's see. Coming up, State Representative Bill Schuette will be here. Spearheading a new wide-ranging regulatory overhaul plans. Governor Whitmer keeping the 35 Senate district open instead of calling for a special election. It's politically motivated, of course, because it would dilute what power she has left, which is not much. All right, we'll talk about that coming up on the Steve Gruber Show. Nice to see you on a Thursday. All right. Never a dull moment. Always moving forward with the conversation. Joining me now, Michigan State Rep Bill Schuette of Midland. Bill, nice to see you back on the program. Thank you for taking the time.
Steve, always appreciate the opportunity. Thank you very much for having me on.
All right, so never fearful to stir things up, you, that is. New wide-ranging regulatory overhaul plans. What is on your to-do list today?
Well, I think, Steve, something that's been very clear to me in my time in the state legislature is that we have way too much red tape on Michiganders and Michigan families, small businesses. And, it was kind of funny. I've listened to 3 of Governor Whitmer's State of the States. And in her latest State of the State, she mentioned that it takes too long to get a permit in the state of Michigan. It's too expensive to get a permit in the state of Michigan. I'm glad in year 7 of her governorship, she finally had that realization. And as chair of the House Rules Committee, working with Speaker Matt Hall, I said, let's take the governor at her word. Let's do a comprehensive review of our permitting processes, our licensing processes, and all the different types of ridiculous red tape that are on Michigan families. And let's put some legislation on the governor's desk, ask her to sign it to help cut costs and regulatory burden on Michigan families.
Agreed. So where would you start? What's your priority? What's number 1 on your list?
Well, Steve, I'm a competitive guy. I know you are as well. And it drives me crazy that it can take you 3 times as long to get a permit in Indiana or Ohio as it does in the state of Michigan. And, when you're delaying permits by 30, 60, 90 days longer than our states to the south. I mean, that is just a huge incentive for any job creator or, business or family to pick up their shop and move it south. So I think we need to have one-stop shops for permitting in the state of Michigan to make it clear, because right now, if you're a child care provider in the state of Michigan, Steve, you have to report to 6 different state agencies. I mean, that doesn't make any sense, and that drives up cost on childcare. And you want to get, build a home.
Hold on,
in the
stop
state of
right
Michigan.
there. Why in the world would you need to go to 6 different agencies? Let's sort that out, because it'll be a good, instructive conversation for people. Look, in 1965, when I was born, about 5% of the people going to work the morning that I was born had to have some sort of government license or permit or whatever. Today, it's half or more.
Yeah.
I mean, look. Does somebody need a license to cut my hair? Look, if they do a lousy job cutting my hair, I'm not coming back. The free market will regulate that. If they do a lousy job putting carpet in my house, they won't have work going forward. The free market will weed out people. And so I don't know that we need all this regulation, period. Of course, it's a money grab for the state, all states, for the most part. Where am I wrong?
No, you're not wrong at all, and it gets worse than cutting hair, Steve. It's you want a license to grade butter in the state of Michigan, grow and sell plants in the state of Michigan. You have to get a license. I mean, that's not common sense regulation. That's bureaucratic red tape, and that's a money grab, because there's no training requirements. All there is a test and a fee that you have to pay. And that's just a way for the state of Michigan to grift more off of hardworking Michiganders and make it harder for people to live their lives here. I'm of the opinion, Steve, that if you're licensed in another state to, whether it's cut hair, grow butter, or, more key aspects like, plumbing, electricians, our skilled trades. If you're licensed in another state, we should say we're going to accept your license if you move to the state of Michigan and set up your family here and set up your residency here. The governor talks about wanting to grow our state's population. That's a good way to get started.
Yeah. A good way to get started is to have tax and infrastructure in the state that makes sense. And you talk about Ohio, Indiana, look, Kentucky, Tennessee, I don't care where you go, right to work, little or no state income tax. Tennessee has none, of course. You look at states that are generally in our neighborhood, I guess. Tennessee might be on the fringe of the neighborhood, but the fact of the matter is people leave Michigan to go to these places for job opportunities, for housing opportunities, for lower tax opportunities, all of it. What are we doing in Michigan to keep and grow our economy here, or to keep and grow our population?
Well, the fact of the matter, Steve, is we're doing a whole lot of wrong things, whether it was repealing right to work. We have a tax structure that you've noted is not competitive. So the least we can do is make sure that we have less red tape on Michigan's small businesses and families. And right now we have a lot more. And you talk about housing, you talk about childcare. These are two key cost drivers for Michigan families. Right now, regulation in their state is driving up those costs dramatically. They say more than $90,000 to every new home build is government regulation and red tape. I mean, you talk about the housing crisis we have in this state. Getting rid of red tape is a good place to start.
Sure is. Let me ask you one more quick thing before we head for the exit here. Governor Whitmer keeping the 35th Senate District open. She's still not called a special election. Apparently, she's never going to. That'd be my take. What are your thoughts?
Well, it's a complete disservice to the people of the community I represent in Midland, or neighboring in Bay and Saginaw. Steve, we just celebrated the 4th of July, right? And what did America declare its independence for? It was taxation without representation. Well, right now there's more than 250,000 people in mid-Michigan who don't have a voice in the state Senate. And we're debating some serious issues in the state legislature right now. And it's incredible that the governor would rather play political games. How many times have we heard Democrats wring their hands over threats to democracy? The governor's creating one right here in the Great Lakes Bay region with her political games.
Yeah. Why would you not call it a race instead of an election? Because you know that it's going to be a red seat at this point.
Yep.
And that would even the Senate out. I mean, thankfully, you guys have the majority in the House, and that takes care of that. But we need to control the Senate. Midterms are coming. It's going to be important. Bill, always appreciate you being here. Thank you.
Appreciate it, Steve. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. We need to get our priorities straight. Build business opportunities for families to thrive and grow here in Michigan. All of these. Do your job. All right, in case you missed it, the Department of Justice lands a big legal victory as a federal judge allows $800 million in grants to be clawed back by the federal government. The judge not happy about it, Amit Mehta in Washington, denied a preliminary injunction that 5 organizations had sought against the DOJ's cancellation of more than 360 grant awards, granted a motion to dismiss the cases. $800 million in grants. Defendants' rescinding of these awards is shameful, wrote the judge. It is likely to harm communities and individuals vulnerable to crime and violence, but displeasure and sympathy are not enough in a court of law. Saying the law is the law and they can claw it back if they want. A priority shift for more direct support of certain law enforcement operations, combat violent crime, support American victims of trafficking and sexual assault. That's the new priority. Democracy Forward Foundation and the Perry Law Firm filed the lawsuit arguing the grant terminations did not allow due process, lacked sufficient clarity, and violated the constitutional separation of powers clause that gives Congress appropriation powers. Well, the judge didn't buy it. The loss of the federal money triggered layoffs, program closures, loss of community partnerships, according to many of the organizations that had the grants rescinded. The Justice Department argued in a court filing that there was no legal basis for the court to order the DOJ to restore lawfully terminated grants and keep paying for programs that the executive branch views as inconsistent with the interests of the United States of America. So, you're out. Judge not impressed, but that doesn't change the final outcome here. And the final outcome is that they're done. Eastside Golf. Here's a little bit of good news. Eastside Golf, the brand launched the store at the Detroit Metropolitan Airport in partnership with Paradis Le Jardin, which operates travel retail in the PGA Tour stores. They're expanding. The launch of its first retail outlet in Detroit continues an expansion plan for Eastside Golf. They're growing. The brand's founders have strong business and personal ties to Michigan. Look, way back on the Steve Gruber Show. All right, we're back to it now, and I'm glad you're here with us on a Thursday. It's been very busy around here, of course, since I took a couple of mornings off. Only working half days for a couple of days just to kind of recharge my batteries, as it were. My next guest, State Representative Brad Paquette. He's a Republican from Niles, Michigan. Brad, nice to have you on the program.
Hey, thanks for having me. Appreciate you, Steve.
Appreciate you. So, Michigan Republicans are embracing the Make America Healthy Again movement, and they're voting to ban artificial dyes, harmful ingredients in school lunches. I think it's a good step forward. Look, when I'm hearing about food stamps buying candy and chips and soda, liquid sugar, it's the sugar superstore garbage haul, is what it is. We need to give kids a chance, and I guess other people too, to not eat just sugar and garbage. I mean, it's diabetes in a box, half this stuff, isn't it?
Yeah, well, we have another bill to address. Well, at least pop being purchased with SNAP benefits. That's another one that's kind of related to this. But in terms of in schools, yeah, children should be understanding that when they plunge their fork into something or they dip their straw into something to drink, that they aren't ingesting chemicals, synthetic dyes, and things, and having preservatives that are disrupting their endocrine systems, that are contributing to hyperactivity or causing cancers.
Yeah. Look, it's not much of a stretch. I mean, many countries in Europe ban all of this stuff and have for years. I don't know what I'm going to do if Cheetos aren't bright orange anymore. I don't eat them, but if I did, I might be upset, Brad. Uh, but maybe they could be a different color of orange, and that's my and blue. There is nothing. There's not a good blue dye that I've read about yet. I don't need blue M&Ms or blue, snow cones or whatever it might be. It's cool. It turns your tongue blue, but it also might have really harmful effects. So all kidding aside, this is serious stuff, isn't it?
It is, and you might look good with blue hair. That's kind of a trend these days. I don't know if you know about
So
that.
hold on. I had to ask this question. Yes, I'm going to ask you. Is there an age limit on blue hair? Is there? Because I saw this lady yesterday. She had to be 70 years old. You got big tuft. I'm like, really? Anyhow, purple, I guess.
No,
Really
I don't think there's an age limit. I've seen blue, green, pink, orange. A lot of that in my area. A lot of protests these days. But yeah, all that aside, uh, with regard to these synthetic dyes, yeah, the aesthetic appeal targets children too, especially with advertisements, and that just increases sugar intakes. And when you have young people that are reaching for these brightly colored, fake colored, sugary treats, yeah, they're going to ingest more, and that's a huge problem that we've had in this country. So with vegetable dyes and the things that are out there, the best practices, as you alluded to, in other countries, sometimes you have to enforce a ban on that, especially when you're talking about the youth of this nation, which is one of the most important things to invest in. We talk about, a lot of educators in particular talk about the whole child, and you have to address the whole child. So we pour a lot of money into, the classroom and the teaching, even though dollars don't really get into the classroom. A lot of it goes into administrative overhead and a lot of other areas. But when you're talking about the whole child, food is medicine. And what children are eating is impacting, obviously, their focus levels, their attention levels, things like that. And so we need to address that to a degree. We got to change the way we're addressing the problem in our learning in our classrooms in the state of Michigan.
Yeah. Um, you point out something important. And it used to be, by the way, that the United States military was a path out of some poor communities in this country and have a chance in the GI Bill and, become somebody that got out of the cycle of poverty or violence, whatever it might be. But now those same poorer communities seem to be more subjected to this obesity you mentioned, Brad. Look, you've got poor eating quality. You've got all this sugar being dumped into these communities by way of the SNAP program and other, food programs. So we're taking away one of the last chances these kids had to get out of that cycle of violence and poverty by making them ineligible for military service. We need to do better.
One of the aspects that I was very surprised when we put this bill up on the board, a lot of my Dems on colleagues on the other side of the aisle voted no against it, which was a complete surprise. Even one of the people that co-sponsored the bill voted for it in committee, ended up voting no on the floor for it. And I've been very sympathetic. A lot of us have been trying to talk about food deserts in particular, especially in Detroit, and how there was an exodus of grocers, in the inner city, and how that's a big problem. And we need to remedy that to a degree. We have to figure out how to address that, because if kids don't have access to healthy foods, then yeah, they're in deep trouble. And that's something that we all need to rally the ships for to help try to address.
Yeah, we need to. Yeah, we need to do better for people. I mean, the job of public servants like yourself is to find what's best for the people, not do self-serving nonsense, not to make cuts, not to get government grants to their friends, like I was reading about minutes ago. It's not. I mean, do better. And it's not just what's in our food, but that's a pretty good start. If we can get our kids better nutrition, real protein, real carbohydrates, turn the food pyramid the direction it should be turned, Brad, because it's basically upside down. You probably know that. And get things onto the right track. What should we do with food programs? A lot of changes in the big beautiful bill. What do you think about work requirements? And in fact, you don't have to work. You can volunteer. You can take an online course and qualify. And the Democrats are screaming as if all these people are going to get chopped off from food assistance and all these other things. You can't get an online course. You can't volunteer to give away free meals for a couple 4 hours a day or whatever. I mean, everybody can do. Point is, do something to contribute, not just sit on the couch and play video games and smoke weed. It's quite a concept, Brad. What do you think?
Well, I think that a lot of this is, it runs in cycles where, Reagan really talked about this a lot in the 80s, even well prior to that, obviously. And so with reforms, and even Theodore Roosevelt back in his day, civil service reforms, that's what exalted him. That's why we know his name. That's why he's on Mount Rushmore. When government gets too overburdened, when there's a focus on, paying off your lobbyist friends or getting things in for the people that give you checks for your campaigns, the people start to rise up and they elect people that are going to bring about reforms. And we're seeing some of that now. And what I've seen, especially in the state house, is that when reforms come, a lot of, sadly, my colleagues on the other side of the aisle, they're going to gripe no matter what. And I've heard a lot of blatant lies in the last couple of years. Rather than what's actually on the legislation, there's a lot of made up things that are said in speeches, and they become the headline, and that's not sticking anymore. The truth will prevail, and reforms have to, come about, because government can't sustain taking care of everybody. And like you said, people smoking weed and living in their mom's basement, that's not sustainable. We need men to step up, and they need to take the role, be out there working, especially if they're healthy and able. So I think there's going to be a lot of hard lines drawn. Michigan House Republicans are a part of that.
Yeah, they need to be. Smoking weed, living in a mom's basement, eating those bright orange Cheetos with that poison dye. That's got to stop, Brad. We got to end that nonsense. All right. Brad Paquette.
Yeah, you could definitely dye your hair with those Cheetos. That would stick for a while. Well, that might be what's happening.
Living down there in Niles. Hopefully you're not a Notre Dame fan. I'm gonna give you the benefit of the doubt, Brad, and hopefully you're a true blue Michigan guy. All right. Greatly appreciate you being here. Thank you, my friend.
Thank you, Steve.
There you have it. Brad Paquette, everybody. Good conversation. We'll have him back anytime. We try to give you as much exposure to Michigan lawmakers and influencers as we can during this part of the program every day. So we appreciate you taking that in. We'll be right back with, guess what? Who's back? Ivy is here after a 2-week, hiatus. Ivy is here on the Steve Gruber Show. Yes, it is. Keeps me happy. Keeps me smiling. Yes. A 10X individual. There she is. All right, welcome back, man. It feels like it's been a month, 6 months, a year. It's been a long time. My next guest has been out there working hard, but I've been very lonely. But she's back and looking very summery. She is a 10X individual. She is my wife. Ivy is back. Ivy, welcome back to the program. Look how sunshiny you look in that bright outfit.
Good morning, Steve. Happy to be back.
Glad to have you. You've been kind of a world traveler. You were in Denver and you're some other places, and I was gone to D.C. and this and that and everything else. And, well, it took us a while to get you back plugged in, but glad to have you here. Man, it is a great time of the year, isn't it?
Summer, it's hard to beat. I mean,
It is.
Michigan in the summer is absolutely gorgeous. I highly recommend if you've never been here, Northern Michigan area. Even I would say it rivals the Caribbean in some ways. So,
I think it does. The
small town
water here,
feel. Yeah.
spectacular. Yeah, you got that right. What's on your mind? I mean, you've been gone so long. You must have come up with a couple of things
Well,
to
I
share with us.
as you know, I always like to touch on the ridiculous things that I hear. And
Yeah,
I have
plenty of
two
that.
bites that I pulled today. So one, Stacey Abrams. Let's hear what she has to say.
You send the U.S. Marines into spaces they should not be. You send the National Guard in. You kidnap people off of the streets and pretend that's normal, because that's how you quiet dissent, because you make everyone afraid that if they don't do what you want, they might be next. And once you've done those 9 steps, step 10 is easy. That's when you decide there won't be new elections, because everyone's either afraid, poor, broken, or complicit.
Oh boy.
Okay, I don't know if you missed it there. She pretty much says that if there were ICE agents at polling stations, it would scare away their voters. I'm thinking, if they're scared away, should they be voting to begin with?
If they're being scared away, they're probably not legal to vote to begin with.
That's my point.
That would be my answer. Absolutely, Ivy. Yeah, clearly. Of course, Stacey Abrams has still not admitted that she got creamed, not once but twice, running for governor in Georgia. She won't admit that she lost badly. So, as my mother used to say, consider the source. I do. Stacey Abrams, her credibility. Yeah. Right. What else you got?
No credibility at all. Of course, everyone's like, election denier, and she does that herself. So, it just depends on what team you are and the rules that you get to play by. But here's another one that I thought was absolutely ridiculous. The Royal Canadian Mounted Police, the RCMP, there was a woman being interviewed about values. So I want you to take a listen to it and tell me what you think.
All right.
What they're saying on a subject, like becoming more extremist, and if someone was very believed in equal gender rights, but all of a sudden are leaning towards like traditional values, and that might be a sign that they're becoming more extremist. But
What? Wait a second. Aligning with traditional values makes you an extremist.
That's exactly what she said.
Wait.
So if
play
you
that
think
again.
a man, you want to play it again?
I gotta
Go
hear
ahead.
that again. Yeah, I gotta hear
what
that
they're
again.
saying on a subject, like becoming more extremist, and if someone was very believed in equal gender rights, but all of a sudden are leaning towards like traditional values, and that might be a sign that they're becoming more extremist. But
Okay,
Thank you,
Camille.
Canada.
Yeah, Canada. Off the rails. Mark Carney is their prime minister. What? Canada, I used to think it was a pretty good place, pretty docile place. I mean, they've got us as the big brother over here. They never have to go to war because, well, they're Canada. They'd argue about hockey and throw a punch on the ice rink, but that's about it. Whatever the hell that was is an embarrassment. That's shameful, isn't it?
So if you don't believe in a husband and wife being married and having, a nuclear family and trying to do your best to stay with that individual for the rest of your life, and that's and
You're a
being
radical.
able to have control on raising your own children and not having to be dictated by the state. I mean, I can go on and on about traditional values, but if you're believing in these traditional values, then you're possibly an extremist. And if we ever wonder what's coming to America, this is it. If we continue down this socialist ideology, this is what we will
Well,
have to
it
deal with.
is. This woke DEI socialist ideology, no nuclear family, because that threatens the ideology, because it's got to be whatever you can give by your ability and take by your needs, and none of that ever works, by the way. I'm sad because what she said there actually is not just in Canada, it's here as well, Ivy. You got people that actually believe that if you don't believe in LGBTQXYZ plus plus minus slash, then somehow you're not human. You don't have enough empathy. Look, if you want to play
You're
dress up,
radical.
I don't
You're
care.
100%.
Yeah, if you want to play dress up, I don't care. But I don't have to play along, right? I don't have to play along with your dress up. I don't have to pretend that you're a woman when you're not. I don't have to do that. That doesn't make me anything except somebody who understands facts, and I'm a guy who sits here and deals with facts, as do you. So I'm not I'm not interested. I'm out in all that
It's
garbage.
amazing sometimes how difficult it is to prove to people what the facts are. And
I
especially
know,
when
isn't
they've
it?
been so brainwashed into believing,
Here are the facts, and they're
that.
like, we don't care. But I've got the facts right here. I've got the printout. I've got the study. I've got the. Oh, that's not. It's just not true. Yeah. And if we had voted for Kamala Harris, the kids in Texas would still be alive. This is how these people think. Strange, sad, and weird. Anyhow, Ivy, it's nice to have you back. That's not anything but glorious. Thank you, as always.
Thank you, Steve. Happy to be here.
All right. Love you. Talk soon. Isn't she the best? She is the best. And I really appreciate her being here. So she's back. Everybody, I'm thinking about doing a whole hour with her here soon. Just her and I talking about whatever we feel like talking about. What do you think of that? We'll have some final thoughts on this program in just a moment. All right, so tomorrow, excuse me, on the program, some topics we'll be covering. Unprepared and entitled. College grads are unpopular with hiring managers, according to some brand new surveys. Unprepared and entitled. That sounds like a whole generation to me, doesn't it? How about you? Yeah, how about that? Unprepared and entitled. College grads are unpopular with hiring managers, according to some brand new surveys. 1 in 4 hiring managers say recent grads not ready for the workforce. 1 in 4. 1 in 8 plan to avoid hiring them altogether this year. Yet the hiring trends are good, but that's for people that have been in the workforce or people that actually know how to show up on time, dressed for work, ready to do the task, whatever the task may be. Soft skills, we call this. Combing your hair, brushing your teeth, putting your pants on. Soft skills, apparently. Hard skills, too much to ask for, apparently. I mean, that's what I've learned from all of this. Soft skills. I never even knew what that was until just recently. I had to figure that out. Come on, there's my clock. Little clock problem there. Anyhow, that'll be part of what we talk about tomorrow. Also, Bitcoin, XRP, all coming into the mainstream now. They are. Where does this leave you? Are you involved with cryptocurrency? Do you avoid it? What do you know about it? Anything? It's becoming more normal. My concern, of course, central bank digital currency. I don't like that idea at all because the government will be looking at everything you do all the time. So good and bad. Both sides of the AI conversation. That'll be here tomorrow as well, as we'll wrap into the weekend. A beautiful July weekend. And it's going to be great in northern Michigan here at the compound. It looks like I might make my way over to Boyne Thunder to see the big boats run. Yeah, the cigarette boats, big boats, run on Lake Charlevoix and out into Lake Michigan. All right, fight the good fight. Keep the faith, my friends. God bless America. I'm Steve Gruber. This is the Steve Gruber Show. And remember, only you can save America.